When an outcast she-wolf is forced to reveal her hidden wolf at a brutal pack trial, everyone expects a monster. But when her fur turns white as moonlight, even the alpha drops to his knees because only one wolf in history has ever been born like that, the white Louna. Hey everyone, before we dive into today's video, please do subscribe to the channel. I'd love to know where you're watching from. Drop your country or city in the comments below. It truly amazes me how far our community reaches around the world. All right, now let's begin. The night reeked of smoke and judgment. Hundreds of eyes glimmered under the moonlight as the pack gathered around the stone circle, a cold, ancient place where traitors were unmasked. In the center stood Aria, wrist-bound, dress torn, silver dust staining her cheeks where tears had dried. The Alpha Council loomed on the platform above her, and behind them, Lucien Drax, the man she once loved, now looked at her like she was filth. "Shift," the elder's voice cracked through the air. "Reveal your wolf, girl." Aria's breath caught. She had never shown her wolf, not once. The secret pulsed in her blood like fire waiting to consume her. The crowd whispered, mocking, cruel. Someone spat at her feet. "Bet her wolf's a runt," another sneered, or cursed. Lucien's cold eyes didn't blink. "Shift, Aria. Prove you belong here, or be exiled forever." The ground trembled beneath her bare feet. Aria wanted to scream that this wasn't fair, that she'd been framed for the elder son's attack, that her wolf, her other half, wasn't meant for this humiliation. But the moon glared down, white and merciless. Her body began to tremble as heat flooded her veins, bones stretching, skin tearing. Gasps rippled through the circle. Silver light began to glow from her hands, then her eyes. Someone shouted, "That's not possible!" Her voice became a growl as her body convulsed and her wolf broke free. And when it did, the world went silent. A blinding white wolf stood where Aria had fallen, fur glowing like snow under moonlight, eyes the color of the frozen sky. The pack fell into stunned stillness. Even the wind seemed to stop breathing. Then one by one, heads began to lower, knees touched the dirt. Even Lucien's chest heaved as he took an involuntary step back. The elders bowed without realizing it. No one spoke, no one dared. For in every legend they'd ever told, only one kind of wolf bore that color, only one whose very presence made alphas tremble. Aria's eyes flicked from face to face as confusion met awe. Her instincts screamed that she wasn't supposed to be revered, she was supposed to be punished. But now her enemies knelt. The fire that once burned inside her turned calm and cold. She could feel her wolf's voice whispering in her head, old as the moon itself. "They called me Louna once." The circle began to vibrate with a strange energy, an invisible pull that made every wolf drop lower. She saw Lucien's lips part, his arrogance crumbling. "White Louna," he whispered, disbelief cracking his tone. And in that haunting silence, Aria took a slow, deliberate step forward. Her fur shimmered like frost, melting in dawn's first light. When she lifted her head and howled, a sound pure and ancient, the sound rolled over the valley, echoing into eternity. For the first time in generations, the pack heard the voice of their true Louna. Her chains shattered, snapping in a burst of silver fire. The elders fell fully to the ground, trembling. And Aria, once mocked, betrayed, humiliated, looked at them all through glowing eyes. "You wanted my wolf." Her voice echoed in both minds and air, powerful and calm. "Now face what you've unleashed." Before the trial, before the humiliation, before the world knew her name, Aria Valen was invisible, the pack's orphan, the girl who swept the training yard at dawn while others sparred in glory. She lived on scraps, slept in the servants' quarters, and spoke only when spoken to. But she had eyes like winter storms, quiet and knowing, and a strange calm that unsettled those who looked too long. The Alpha son, Lucien Drax, noticed her first, He'd catch her watching him train, her hair tied with a strip of linen, her fingers raw from work. "You're always staring," he'd tease one morning, wiping sweat from his brow. "Maybe you wish you could spar?" Aria had smiled faintly. "Maybe I wish I didn't have to clean your mess after." He'd laugh then, rich, careless, beautiful. That laugh had been her undoing. It started like all foolish love stories do, with a glance, then a word, then the slow drowning of reason. Lucien would sneak down to the servants' quarters after midnight, claiming he needed a quiet place to think. He'd bring her apples, sometimes bread, sometimes nothing at all but stories of the outside world, the rivers, the mountains, the stars that only Alpha's sons saw freely. Aria listened, memorizing his voice more than his words. He said she had a wolf's heart, though he didn't know how right he was. He said one day he'd make her more than a servant, and she believed him because love makes fools of the kind-hearted. But packs don't forgive mixed bloodlines. When whispers of their meetings reached the Alpha Council, Lucien denied everything. "She seduced me," he said coldly in front of them all. "She's jealous of the ranked families." The memory burned in her chest even now, how his eyes never met hers, how she stood trembling as laughter filled the room. From that day, her punishment was silence. She was forbidden from the pack house, marked untrustworthy, left to scrub the stables with frost-bitten hands. But the moon, it seemed, was watching. On nights when she couldn't sleep, she'd see the silver glow in her reflection, eyes flickering brighter than they should. Something inside her stirred when the wind howled, as if an ancient voice was calling her name through time itself. Months later, the attack happened. The elder son, cruel and spoiled, cornered her by the river. He tried to drag her down, his breath stinking of ale and ego. She pushed him away. He slipped. The current swallowed him whole. By the time they found his body, the story had changed. Aria murdered him in cold blood. No one listened to her cries. No one cared for truth. The pack demanded justice, and Lucien, their future alpha, didn't defend her. He stood beside his father, stone-faced, as they declared she would face the moon trial, forced to reveal her wolf or die a traitor. That night, locked in her cell, Aria whispered to the shadows, "If you're in me, if you're real, don't let me die like this." The air shimmered faintly, silver ripples moving like breath against the stone walls. A whisper answered, not in words, but in feeling. "You were never meant to bow." She didn't understand then, but she would. Soon, the girl who scrubbed floors would rise higher than any alpha, and the world that spat on her would tremble in reverence. Long before the trial, long before betrayal hollowed her chest, Aria once believed the world could be gentle. It was a late autumn evening when Lucien took her to the northern pines, far beyond the pack's patrol lines. The air smelled of sap and rain, and the forest glowed gold in the dying light. Aria had never been that far from the village before. She followed him quietly, boots muddy, cloak torn at the edges, but her heart was light. Lucien turned back and grinned, that dangerous grin that made her forget who she was. "No one will find us here," he said. "You can stop looking over your shoulder." She laughed softly, though her hands trembled. "You shouldn't be seen with me, Lucien." He reached out, fingers brushing hers. "Then we'll make sure no one ever sees." They sat beneath the tallest pine, the world quiet around them. The stars bled slowly into view, the moon rising like a pale secret. Lucien traced patterns in the dirt with a stick, avoiding her gaze. "You ever wonder why your eyes glow sometimes?" he asked. Aria's breath caught. "You've noticed?" Of course I've noticed, he said, smiling faintly. They shimmer when the moon's full. She hesitated, feeling the pull in her blood, that strange heat she never understood. I don't know what I am, she whispered. I feel different, like there's something inside me that doesn't belong to this world. Lucien looked at her then, truly looked. Maybe that's what I like about you. His voice softened. You make the rest of us seem ordinary. He kissed her under that pine, soft, hesitant, the kind of kiss that promises forever without saying a word. Aria's world stopped moving. For one fragile heartbeat, she believed him, believed that she could belong somewhere other than the shadows. One day, he whispered, brushing her cheek, I'll take you away from all this. No ranks, no councils, just us. She smiled, shy and foolish, her fingers brushing the crest pendant that hung around his neck. Do you mean that? He nodded. By the next moon's rise. And in that golden silence, their wolves stirred beneath their skin, reaching for each other through an ancient bond neither understood. But promises are fragile things. The next moon rose, and Lucien didn't come. Aria waited beneath the same pine, cloak soaked with dew, heart pounding at every sound. When dawn broke, it wasn't Lucien who arrived, but his father's guards. They dragged her back to the pack house, her wrists bound. The Alpha summons you, one said coldly. That night, Lucien's voice was the first she heard in the council hall, but it wasn't the voice that had whispered forever. It was cold, sharp, rehearsed. She's nothing, he told them. She means nothing to me. Her world cracked like glass. Later, alone in the dark, Aria pressed her hand to her heart, where his warmth had once been. You promised, she whispered. Outside, the wind howled through the pines, scattering needles like tears. The moon rose high, and in its silver light, her reflection shimmered in the window, eyes growing brighter than before. Somewhere deep inside, her wolf stirred again, stronger this time. It whispered through the ache, low and steady. Remember this pain. You'll need it. The feast burned itself into Aria's memory like a brand. She'd been forced to serve at it, tray balanced in trembling hands, surrounded by laughter that cut sharper than knives. The hall blazed with candlelight, music echoing against the high stone walls. Gold banners fluttered overhead, marking the Alpha Sun's official announcement. Aria didn't yet know what they were celebrating, only that Lucien hadn't looked her in the eye once since that night under the pines. His gaze passed over her like she was furniture. She carried her tray to the high table, setting down goblets for the Alpha, the elders, and Lucien himself. Then his father rose, his voice booming across the room. Tonight, we honor my son, Lucien Drax, and his future mate, Lady Seraphine of the Silverclaw Pack. The room erupted in cheers. Aria froze, tray slipping from her grasp. Wine spilled like blood across the stone. For a heartbeat, no one breathed. Then the laughter began, mocking, cruel, delighted in her pain. Lucien didn't flinch. His hand rested on Seraphine's shoulder, his expression carved in ice. Aria bent to clean the mess, her fingers shaking so hard she could barely grip the cloth. Clumsy servant, someone muttered. Another smirked. Guess she thought she'd be the one wearing the Luna's crown. Each word was a dagger. Her throat ached with unspoken rage. When she looked up, her eyes met Lucien's for half a second. He looked away first. The hall spun around her. Music, laughter, clinking glasses. Yet all she could hear was her heart breaking one beat at a time. She slipped out the back door into the freezing night, breath fogging in the air. The forest loomed dark beyond the walls, whispering secrets only wolves could hear. Aria leaned against the cold stone, pressing a hand to her chest. Why? She whispered to the wind. Why would you do this to me? The only answer was the sound of the distant river, the same one that would soon become her prison. Her wolf stirred uneasily, a deep rumble echoing through her bones. They have no idea what they've unleashed. Inside, the feast roared on. Lucien danced with his new fiancée, though his eyes darted toward the empty doorway. For a flicker of a moment, guilt cracked his perfect mask, but the alpha's gaze burned into him, cold and expectant, and Lucien straightened his shoulders. He had made his choice. The pack over love, power over truth. Aria's name would become a stain he'd pretend never existed. Yet that night, as the moon rose high and silver clouds drifted across it, a strange light flickered on the horizon. Far beyond the village, in the silent forest, the wind shifted. The white wolf was stirring. Aria didn't know it yet, but fate was already moving toward her. The same feast that broke her heart would soon mark the beginning of her rise. The girl who was mocked for serving wine would one day stand above them all, untouchable, radiant, divine. But for now, she fell to her knees in the snow, tears freezing on her skin, whispering a promise to the night. "You'll remember me, all of you." The trees seemed to bow slightly in the wind, as if answering. And far away, under the moon, the spirit of the white Luna listened and smiled. The morning after the feast, the air felt strange, too still, too heavy, as though the forest was holding its breath. Aria rose early, her eyes swollen from crying. She wandered to the river, the one that wound like silver through the valley. The world there was quiet. Dew clung to the grass. Birds whispered between branches. For a moment, she could almost pretend she still belonged somewhere. But that illusion shattered when she heard his voice. "You shouldn't be here, servant." It was Ronan Vale, the elder's only son, broad-shouldered, cruel-smiled, and drunk on entitlement. He leaned against the tree, a flask in hand, his eyes gleaming with amusement. "The alpha son humiliated you. Must sting." Aria ignored him, stepping toward the water, but he followed. "Don't walk away when I'm talking to you," he hissed, grabbing her arm. The touch burned. "Let go," she said quietly, but he laughed, pressing closer. "Maybe I'll make you forget him." The struggle was quick, too quick. Aria shoved him hard, heart pounding. He stumbled back, tripped on a root, and slipped into the rushing current. His shout cut through the trees, then vanished beneath the roar of the water. Aria gasped, sprinting to the edge. "Ronan!" she screamed, scanning the surface for any sign of him. But the river swallowed everything. Panic shot through her veins. She ran along the bank, calling again and again until her voice broke. When she finally stopped, trembling and soaked, the world was silent except for the cruel rush of the water. She dropped to her knees, tears mixing with the river's spray. She hadn't meant for this to happen. She hadn't meant for anyone to die. But fate, it seemed, had chosen her again, for ruin. By the time the guards found her hours later, she was still sitting by the riverbank, dazed. They didn't ask questions. They didn't care about the bruises on her arm or the panic in her eyes. They dragged her back to the pack house, mud streaking her face, whispers following her like shadows. "Murderer! Cursed wolf! Maybe her kind was never meant to live among us." The words sank into her bones like frost. When the council gathered that evening, Lucien stood among them. Aria's heart leapt at the sight of him, until she saw the coldness in his stare. "Tell them," she begged. "Tell them what kind of man Ronan was. Tell them this was an accident." Lucien's jaw clenched. "There are witnesses who saw you push him." Her breath caught. "Witnesses?" she repeated. "You mean lies." But he didn't flinch. He didn't even blink. That night, the moon hid behind clouds, refusing to watch. Aria was thrown into the holding cells beneath the council hall, her wrists bound in silver cuffs that burned her skin. The guards muttered prayers under their breath, as though she carried a curse that could spread by touch. Alone in the dark, she curled against the wall, trying to steady her heartbeat. Then the whisper came again, soft, ancient, almost like a lullaby. They fear what they do not understand. Aria lifted her head, eyes flickering faintly silver. The voice inside her pulsed like a heartbeat. Do not beg, little one, rise. For the first time, she didn't cry. She stared into the darkness until her eyes glowed fully, bright enough to reflect off the stone. Somewhere above, the pack celebrated Ronin's justice, never realizing that they were already writing their own downfall. By dawn, her trial was announced. By the next moonrise, she would be forced to reveal her wolf, the one secret that could destroy them or save her. The moon was full, swollen and white like a watching eye. The entire pack gathered around the stone circle, an ancient clearing carved into the mountain's base, where truth was said to reveal itself beneath the moon's gaze. Torches lined the path, flames bending toward the wind as Aria was dragged forward in chains. Her bare feet bled from the rocky ground. Every step echoed like judgment. Whispers rippled through the crowd, snarling, venomous, eager. That's the killer, the cursed one. Let's see what kind of beast she hides. The elders stood high upon the stone dais, robes fluttering, faces unreadable. At their center sat Alpha Drax, stern and cold. And beside him, Lucian. He looked as though carved from ice, eyes hollow, jaw tight. He would not meet her gaze. The sight hurt more than the chains. When they reached the circle, a guard struck her knees with a staff. She fell hard against the stone. The elder raised his hand for silence. Aria Valen, accused of murdering Ronin Vale, you stand before the moon and the pack. By ancient law, you will shift before us all. If your wolf is pure, the moon will forgive. If it is dark, your soul will burn in silver flame. The crowd cheered for her death. Aria lifted her chin despite the fear clawing at her ribs. I am not a murderer, she said, her voice shaking but clear. I defended myself. But none of you care for truth. You only want a monster to blame. Her words echoed through the clearing, sharp as the wind. Lucian's jaw clenched, but he said nothing. The elder's voice boomed again. Shift, or be executed. Her heart pounded like thunder. Every instinct screamed for her to hide, to protect the secret inside her. But as the silver cuffs tightened and the crowd began to chant, she realized there was no escape. Either she revealed what she was, or she would die with her truth untold. She closed her eyes, inhaling deeply. The night air was cold in her lungs, tinged with smoke and fear. Then she let go. The change came violently. Her bones snapped, skin split, light burst from her chest. Gasps tore through the circle. Her scream turned to a howl, low and powerful, shaking the earth itself. The silver cuffs glowed white-hot, then shattered. When the light faded, silence fell. A wolf stood in her place, towering, radiant, with fur as white as falling snow. Her eyes glowed ice blue, reflecting the moon itself. The pack froze. The elders fell to their knees before they even understood why. Even Lucian stumbled back as his breath caught as he whispered, No, it can't be. The Alpha tried to rise, but found his legs trembling. The White Luna, one elder gasped, voice breaking. The lost bloodline. The torches flickered, bowing inward, as if even fire dared not challenge her presence. Aria, no longer just Aria, lifted her head and howled again, the sound carrying for miles, echoing through every wolf's bones. For generations, the White Luna was only a myth, a wolf of purity and power, said to be born once every 1,000 years to restore balance to corrupted packs. None alive had ever seen her. Until now. The crowd that once cursed her now dropped to their knees in reverence, unable to resist the pull of her aura. Lucien fell last, his heart shattering under the weight of what he had done. She turned her glowing eyes toward him, and for the first time in his life, he couldn't speak. "You wanted my wolf." Her voice echoed in every mind, strong and cold as moonlight. "Now face what your lies have awakened." The ground pulsed beneath her paws. And in that moment, every wolf bowed. Every heart trembled. The girl they called cursed was no longer prey. She was prophecy. When dawn broke over the mountains, the world felt changed. The air hummed faintly, thick with something sacred. The pack moved through the village in silence, as if afraid to speak the name of what they'd witnessed. At the heart of it all stood Aria, no longer chained, no longer broken, but trembling with power she couldn't yet control. Her fur had faded away with the moonlight, leaving her human once more, bare and unyielding under the pale sun. The guards had tried to approach her, but the moment one stepped too close, the earth shuddered, and he fell to his knees, gasping for breath. The elders had bowed until sunrise, afraid to rise before she gave permission. Now they watched from a distance, whispering in awe and terror. "The white Louna has returned," one murmured. "The balance is shifting." But for Aria, there was no triumph, only a hollow ache. She hadn't wanted this. She only wanted justice. Lucien stood apart from them all, his face ghost pale. He had spent the night outside her cell, waiting for courage to find him, but it never came. When she finally looked at him now, her eyes weren't angry. They were unreadable. "You knew, didn't you?" she asked quietly. Her voice carried across the still air. "You felt it once, under the pines." Lucien swallowed, guilt pressing on his chest like stone. He couldn't finish. She stepped closer, the faint shimmer of power still clinging to her skin. "You chose to bury me instead of believing me." Each word was soft, but it landed like thunder. "And now, you kneel." He dropped his gaze to the dirt, shame carving deep lines in his soul. "Forgive me, Aria." Her lips parted, but she said nothing. The silence between them was heavier than any punishment. By midday, the Alpha Council had assembled in secret. Behind thick wooden doors, voices argued in hushed panic. "She's a threat," one barked. "No mortal pack should possess such power," another whispered. "But the legends say the White Louna brings order, not destruction. If she leads, then what are we?" Fear twisted every word. They couldn't kill her. They couldn't control her. So they plotted another way. To chain her with politics, to crown her in name, but strip her of freedom. Outside, the village buzzed with unease. Wolves who once spat at her feet now left offerings of flowers at her door, muttering blessings to the moon. Children whispered her name in awe. Yet every act of devotion only deepened her isolation. Aria stood at the window of the abandoned quarters they'd given her, staring at the forest that had once been her only friend. Power, she realized, could be a cage too. That night, she dreamed of the moon. In her dream, she stood alone on a silver plain, her reflection shimmering in an invisible lake. "You are the first in many lifetimes," a voice whispered from the sky. "But you are not yet complete." Aria turned, searching for the speaker, but saw only shadows curling in the distance. "What am I supposed to do?" she called. "Balance must return. But first, the wolves must remember what they have forgotten." The shadows pulsed closer, faces of those who had wronged her, Lucien among them. "And what about me? What do I become?" The voice softened, ancient and sorrowful. The white Luna bears both mercy and fire. Choose which you'll give them. Aria woke before dawn, heart pounding, sweat cooling on her skin. Through the window, the horizon glowed faintly gold. The village slept. Only the forest seemed awake, whispering through the trees as if urging her to move. She touched the scar the silver cuffs had left on her wrists and closed her eyes. Mercy or fire? Her wolf stirred inside her, calm, impatient. We'll give them both. Outside, a faint howl echoed in the distance. Low, mourning, beautiful. The pack was changing, whether it wanted to or not. And somewhere deep in the mountains, an ancient power stirred again, as if answering her rise. The night after Aria's awakening, Alpha Drax didn't sleep. He sat in his chamber, staring into the dying embers of the hearth, the flames throwing shadows across the wolf head sigils carved into the stone walls. His hands shook as he poured himself another drink, the scent of whiskey mingling with fear. A white Luna, he muttered. After centuries of silence, he'd seen power before, but nothing like what she'd unleashed. When she howled, even the mountains had bowed. He'd felt it. Every bone in his body wanted to kneel, and that terrified him more than any enemy ever had. If the pack follows her, he whispered, voice trembling, if they see her as chosen. He couldn't let that happen. Not when everything he'd built, his rule, his legacy, his son's future, hung on control. So he called a secret meeting before dawn. Lucian entered first, eyes sunken, guilt carved into every line of his face. You sent for me, father, he said. Yes, Drax replied, his voice sharp. Sit. Moments later, Elder Varric and two enforcers joined them, their faces pale beneath the torchlight. We all saw what happened, the Alpha said. We all felt it, that thing she became. She's no thing, Lucian interrupted before he could stop himself. She's the white Luna. Drax slammed his fist on the table, rattling the cups. She's a threat. The word echoed like thunder. Our wolves bowed to her without command. Do you understand what that means? The pack no longer belongs to me. It belongs to her. Elder Varric's eyes flickered nervously. Then we must cage her power, bind her, before the moon chooses her as its vessel fully. Bind her how? Lucian asked, voice low. Silver can't hold her. Chains melt in her light. Drax leaned forward. Not silver. Blood. The words chilled the room. You mean a binding ritual? Varric murmured. Old magic. Forbidden magic. Desperate times, the Alpha growled. He turned to his son. Lucian, she trusts you more than anyone. You will get close to her again. Make her believe you regret what you did. Make her lower her guard. When the time comes, we'll use your blood to anchor her. Once she's bound, the white Luna will be ours to control or destroy. Lucian stared at him speechless. The image of Aria's glowing eyes haunted him. The pain in her voice when she said, You chose to bury me. He couldn't imagine betraying her again, but the Alpha's gaze was iron. Do I make myself clear? Drax hissed. If she leads, our line dies. Choose your blood or hers. Outside, the forest shivered under a rising wind. Aria stood alone on the cliffs, cloak whipping around her. She didn't need to hear the meeting to feel its venom. Her wolf sensed it in the air, The way prey senses a hunter. They plot. They always will. Aria's fingers tightened on the edge of the stone. Let them, she whispered. The moon sees everything. She turned toward the village below, lights flickering like dying stars. She had no counsel, no allies, no plan, but she had purpose now. If they wanted to chain her, they would first have to understand what she truly was. Not a myth, not a weapon, a reckoning. By sunrise, Lucian stood at her door, torn between duty and heart. When she opened it, her expression was unreadable, her hair catching the light like spun frost. "What do you want, Lucian?" she asked quietly. He hesitated. To make things right. Her eyes lingered on him for a long moment, then softened, just slightly. "Then start by telling me the truth." His throat tightened. The truth was a blade, one that could save her or end her. And for the first time, he wasn't sure which his father would force him to use. The moon hung low and red that night, its light slicing through the mist that coiled over the valley like smoke from an unseen fire. Aria sat beside the stream, her reflection glowing faintly in the water, the white aura of her wolf always there now, just beneath her skin. She could hear every heartbeat within miles, every whisper of fear, every lie carried on the wind. "You shouldn't be out here," Lucian said from behind her, his voice careful, almost reverent. He stepped closer, his boots crunching frost. "The pack's restless. They don't understand what you've become." Aria didn't turn. "You mean what I've always been," she said softly. "They just never wanted to see it." He swallowed hard, torn between awe and regret. "I want to help you, Aria." She finally faced him, her eyes silver bright beneath the blood moon. "Then stop pretending you can." For a moment, silence fell, and then he knelt beside her, reaching out to take her hand. "You have no idea what my father's planning," he said, his voice shaking. "He's terrified of you. He's calling the elders. He wants to bind you with blood." Aria's wolf stirred at that, a low growl rippling through her chest. "Blood binding," she murmured. "Ancient magic. It kills both if the heart resists." Lucian nodded, his eyes haunted. "That's why I came, to warn you. He thinks I'll be the one to anchor it. He'll use me against you." For a moment, something soft flickered between them. Memory, forgiveness, maybe even love. But before she could answer, a sound split the air, a horn's cry, deep and ancient. The trees trembled, the night came alive with torches. "No," Lucian whispered. "He's early." The pack poured into the clearing like a flood, enforcers, elders, and Drox himself at the front, his cloak black against the crimson moon. "Step away from her," the alpha moored. Lucian stood defiant. "You can't control her, father." Drox's eyes blazed. "I can control anyone who stands under my rule." He lifted a silver blade etched with runes, the kind forbidden since the First War. The air hummed with power. "Bring her." Two guards lunged, but Aria moved first. Light exploded from her body, a flash of white that sent the men sprawling. Her eyes burned like twin stars. "You want to see what I am?" she said, her voice no longer human. "Then kneel." The ground shook, the stream hissed into steam, and every wolf within earshot dropped to their knees, howling in submission. All except Drox. He gritted his teeth, forcing himself upright, veins bulging. "No," he shouted, "this pack is mine." Then before Aria could stop him, he grabbed Lucian, dragging the knife across his palm. Blood dripped into the earth, glowing where it touched her light. The ritual had begun. Runes flared around them, forming a circle of crimson fire. "Lucian!" she screamed, but the Alpha's chant drowned her out. The spell twisted the air, pulling her down, forcing her to her knees. "By blood and moon," Drax growled, "I bind the white Luna to my line." Her power flickered, cracking like glass. She felt it, her strength draining into Lucian's trembling body. He gasped in agony. "Stop!" she cried, tears searing down her cheeks. The world blurred. She could feel his heart slowing. And then Lucian did the unthinkable. With the last of his will, he turned the knife on himself, driving it through the glowing rune on his chest. The magic snapped like a storm breaking. The circle shattered. Light exploded outward, hurling everyone to the ground. When the light faded, Lucian lay still. The runes were gone. Drax crawled toward him, screaming his son's name, but Aria rose, her white aura now blinding, her grief turning to something ancient and terrible. "You took his choice," she whispered, her voice shaking with power. "Now I take yours." Drax looked up just in time to see her eyes turn pure silver. A wind roared across the valley, tearing trees from the ground. Every wolf within sight howled in terror. "You wanted to bind me?" she said. "Instead, you've freed me." The moonlight poured over her like fire as she stepped toward him, unstoppable. "And now," she whispered, "the white Luna rises." The forest burned with silver fire. The sky itself seemed alive, clouds swirling in patterns that pulsed like a heartbeat. Aria stood in the center of it all, pale, trembling, her wolf half manifested in the glow. Every breath she took rippled through the earth. Lucian's body lay still beside her, and for a moment the world was quiet enough to hear her breaking heart. She sank to her knees, cradling his face. "You weren't supposed to save me," she whispered, her voice cracked and raw. His blood, bright under the moonlight, stained her hands. "I never wanted you to die for me." Around them, the pack began to stir, dozens of wolves rising from where they'd been thrown. Fear flickered in their eyes. Some stared in awe, others in guilt, but none dared move. The air shimmered with something older than rage, judgment. Drax crawled across the ground, his once mighty frame now shaking. "Aria, please," he rasped, his voice trembling. "I didn't mean—" "You meant every word," she said softly. The wind carried her tone like a blade. "You tried to bind me. You used your son as a weapon." Her aura brightened until even the stars seemed to dim. "This pack has followed your cruelty for years. You built your rule on fear. Tonight, that ends." She stood lifting her gaze to the moon. "By the blood of your heir and the light of the Moon Mother, I claim judgment." A voice, not hers, echoed from the sky, soft and ancient, weaving through the wind. "The white Luna returns, and the balance shall be restored." Drax screamed as his mark, the black tattoo of alpha authority, burned away from his skin, vanishing into smoke. The pack howled in terror and awe as the light shifted. One by one, the wolves bowed their heads, their fur rippling under the moonlight as if touched by unseen hands. "The moon chooses her," whispered Elder Varric, tears streaking his wrinkled face. "The prophecy." For generations, the legend had only been a bedtime story. A white Luna born when the world was too corrupt to heal itself. Now it was breathing before them. Aria looked over the pack, not with pride, but sorrow. "You were my family," she said quietly. "Even when you cast me aside, even when you tried to break me. But I am not your weapon. I am your reminder." As she spoke, the flames around her softened, turning to drifting petals of light that floated down like ash, settling on the wolf's fur. Their pain, their fear, she could feel it all, every wound their souls carried, and still, she forgave them. Drax tried to stand, but his power was gone. His eyes filled with something new, not hate, but despair. Kill me. If you truly are what they say, end me. Aria stepped forward slowly, the silver light dimming around her until she looked almost human again. No, she said simply. Death is mercy. You will live, and remember. She knelt, pressing her palm to his chest, just above the heart. A glow spread through him, searing his skin with the new mark, the crescent of the fallen. You will walk this forest as an omega, she decreed. A reminder of what pride costs. His body convulsed and then he collapsed, his eyes hollow. The pack watched, silent and trembling, as the man who once ruled them now crawled among the roots like the lowest of wolves. When the light finally faded, Aria turned to Lucien's still body once more. The moon lowered, bathing him in its last pale light. She leaned down and pressed her forehead to his. The Moon Mother sees you, she whispered. She will guide you where I cannot. A tear fell on his cheek, and for the briefest moment, his lips curved in a ghost of a smile, as though some part of him still heard her. Aria stood, her cloak whispering in the cold wind. Behind her, the pack knelt. Every single wolf, head bowed, hearts trembling. Rise, she said softly. Your Louna stands. The night after the judgment was painfully still. The forest no longer whispered of war, yet peace felt like a wound that wouldn't close. Aria sat beside Lucien's resting place beneath a great moonstone tree where the roots shimmered faintly with silver light. The pack had built him a cairn of white stones, each one marked with a symbol of mourning. The air was thick with the scent of rain and wolf tears. You should rest, whispered Elder Varric behind her. Aria didn't look up. How can I rest when he never will? She murmured. The old man sighed. He chose this, Louna. The bond between you was deeper than you understand. She frowned. What do you mean? The elder hesitated, glancing toward the faint shimmer of moonlight still surrounding Lucien's grave. When he bled for you, Varric said quietly, he didn't just give you freedom. He gave you his life force. That kind of sacrifice leaves an echo. Aria turned sharply. An echo? Varric nodded. There are stories that when two souls are bound by both love and death, their essence fuses. A part of him might still linger within you. Aria's pulse quickened. You're saying he's alive? The elder shook his head gently. Not as you knew him, but his spirit may guide you, protect you. His eyes darkened. Though there are risks, if the bond is too strong, it can consume you instead. Aria rose, the night wind swirling her cloak. Then I'll find out which it is, she said, voice trembling but fierce. As she turned away, her chest burned, a sudden, searing pain that made her stumble. The elder caught her arm. Louna? Her vision blurred, and then she saw it. A flicker of Lucien's face, eyes glowing softly. Don't let them take it, his voice whispered in her mind. The heart of the moon. Don't let them find it. And then he was gone. She gasped for air, clutching her chest. He's still speaking. The heart of the moon? Varric's face went pale. That can't be. He looked toward the horizon, where thunderclouds gathered. The heart of the moon is not a myth. It's a relic, the Moon Mother's essence sealed in stone. Whoever holds it controls the balance of the wolves. Aria's stomach turned cold. And if Drax finds it first? The elder's voice broke. Then he could reclaim the Alpha's mark and enslave every wolf again, including you. Lightning split the sky as Aria realized the truth. Lucien's sacrifice had not ended the war. It had only delayed it. Somewhere in the north, the exiled Alpha crawled towards something even darker. By dawn, Aria had gathered her cloak and blade, her resolve hard as steel. The pack watched as she mounted her horse beneath the gray morning. "You cannot go alone," said Varric. "If the heart is real, it will test you." She looked back at him, her expression soft but unyielding. "It already has," she said, "but I won't let his death be for nothing." The young wolves bowed their heads, silent. One, a girl barely grown, whispered, "Will you return, Louna?" Aria smiled faintly. "I always do." Then she spurred her horse forward, vanishing into the mist. Behind her, the first light of day broke over the valley, not golden, but silver, as though the moon refused to leave her side. Miles away, hidden in the shadowed ruins of an ancient temple, Drax knelt before a circle of runes. His body was weak, his spirit fractured, yet his eyes burned with obsession. "The moon took everything from me, but I will take everything from her." From the darkness a voice replied, low, inhuman, hungry. "Then let us begin." The wind howled through the broken stones as a faint glow rose from the earth, the pulse of something vast and ancient, something that should never have been found. The northern lands were nothing like the forests of home. The trees here were skeletal and silver gray, their branches clawing at the mist like desperate fingers. Snow fell without sound, each flake glowing faintly in the moonlight, not white, but pale blue, as if the sky itself mourned. Aria trudged through the frozen silence, her breath forming small ghosts in the air. She had been traveling for days, guided only by Lucien's whisper echoing faintly in her mind. "Don't let them take it." His voice was both comfort and torment. Sometimes it faded. Sometimes it pulsed through her blood so strongly she thought he might be walking beside her again. By the fourth night, she reached the ruins, a stone temple half buried in ice, its walls carved with ancient runes that glowed softly when she touched them. "The heart of the moon," she murmured, her voice trembling. "This is where it sleeps." Inside, the air was warm and heavy, humming with power. Silver light poured from a circular chamber ahead, where a massive crystal pulsed like a living heart. It floated above an altar of black stone, tendrils of light spiraling toward the ceiling like veins of liquid moonlight. Aria stepped closer, awe and fear twisting together inside her. "You found it," said a voice behind her. She spun around and froze. Drax stood in the doorway, cloaked in shadow, his eyes burning red. His once proud figure was broken, his skin marked with scars of failed power, but his will was sharper than ever. "You always had his strength and his weakness." Aria's blade was in her hand before she breathed. "You should be dead." "I was," he replied, "but death wouldn't have me until I finished what I began." He stepped forward, the runes reacting to his presence, flickering angrily. "You think you're chosen because your wolf glows," Drax growled. "You're a child playing goddess. The White Luna is not salvation. She's the weapon that ends all wolves. That's why the moon hid the heart." Aria's pulse thundered in her ears. "You don't understand it. You never did." "No," he hissed. "You don't. That relic doesn't bless. It consumes. The moment you touch it, it will drain you, merge your power with it, and erase your will. You'll become nothing but a vessel for her." Aria hesitated. The crystal pulsed faster, its glow sinking with her heartbeat. For the first time, she felt fear not for herself, but for what she might become. Still, Lucien's whisper came again, soft but steady. "Trust the moon, not the man." Drax lunged. The blade of his dagger caught the light, streaking through the air, but Aria's reflexes were faster. Their weapons clashed, sparks hissing in the dark. The chamber trembled under the weight of their power, the air thick with light and fury. You destroyed your own son, she cried, blocking another strike, for power you'll never earn. I did it to preserve the bloodline, and you killed it. The words cut deep. For a moment, grief froze her hand, and he struck. The dagger sliced across her arm. Blood spilled, crimson against the pale stone. The heart reacted instantly, pulsing brighter, the scent of her blood igniting the runes. A beam of light shot from the crystal, slamming into both of them. Aria screamed as the world dissolved into blinding silver. When the light faded, everything was silent. Drax lay crumpled against the far wall, unconscious. But Aria hovered above the altar, her body encased in a halo of white fire. Her hair flowed like liquid light, her eyes glowing pure silver. She felt her heart stop, and then another heartbeat inside her chest. Lucian's. His voice echoed, stronger now, filled with calm. You're not alone, Aria. I am with you. Always was. Tears streamed down her face. Lucian, what are you? Part of you, part of her. The moon's gift and curse. But now you must choose. Seal the heart to end this forever, or open it and risk everything to restore what was lost. Her hands trembled as she looked down at the pulsing light beneath her. Every memory, every pain, every love swirled inside her like a storm. For once, she didn't feel cursed. She felt complete. Then let the moon decide, she whispered, and pressed her palms to the heart.
The world erupted in light, not sunlight, moonlight so fierce it burned. The heart of the moon shattered like glass under Aria's palms, scattering into 1,000 radiant fragments that whirled through the air like stars breaking free. The ground trembled, and the ruins screamed as if the earth itself were alive. Aria floated in the storm, her body glowing white, her soul pulled in two directions, one toward the living, the other toward the beyond. She saw flashes, wolves kneeling in the valley below, their eyes turned to the sky. Drax crawling in pain, his hands over his face. Lucian standing in a field of silver mist, reaching for her. Aria, he said, his voice echoing from both the spirit and the earth. You can still stop this. She shook her head, tears burning trails through her light. I won't let it end with more blood. If I must be the bridge, so be it. Her wolf roared inside her, the sound rippling through the storm like thunder. Below, the pack saw it. The moon above the ruins had split into two halves, one white, one red. The air shimmered, and for a moment, every wolf felt the pulse of their Luna's heart. She's merging with it, whispered Elder Varric, kneeling. She's becoming the balance. The wolves howled as the light intensified. The boundary between the worlds cracked open. Spirits of old alphas and lost kin appeared among the trees, their shapes translucent and glowing. The living wolves backed away in awe and fear. Among them, one figure stumbled forward, Drax, half-broken but unyielding. She'll destroy us all, he shouted into the wind. She's collapsing the veil. But no one followed him now. They could see the truth in the sky. She wasn't destroying. She was transforming. The red half of the moon darkened until both sides met, forming a single, blinding eclipse. The light struck the valley like rain. Inside the storm, Aria reached for Lucian. If I let go, will I see you again? His hand met hers, warm despite the chaos. You already do, he said softly. Every breath you take, I'm there. Every heartbeat, mine and yours are one now. She smiled through her tears. Then help me finish it. Together, they lifted their hands and the shattered fragments of the heart rose, swirling faster and faster until they formed a new moon suspended within the ruins. It pulsed once, twice, and then burst outward in a wave of light that rippled across the land. The wolves below cried out as something ancient washed through them,
not pain, but release. The curses of old were broken. The twisted bonds of power shattered. Every wolf felt their soul lighten, as if centuries of cruelty had finally lifted. The eclipse of wolves had come. When the storm faded, silence fell. The ruins were gone, replaced by a valley of glass and moonlight. Aria knelt at the center, smoke curling from her skin. Her once white aura now flickered faintly, tinged with blue. She felt her strength draining, her body trembling with exhaustion. "It's done," she whispered. Lucien's presence lingered inside her, warm, fading slowly. "You saved them," he said, "and me." "No," she whispered, smiling weakly. "You saved me first." His laugh was soft as a breeze. "Then we're even." She looked to the sky, where the moon now shone whole and bright. "Don't go," she whispered. But he was already fading, not vanishing, but settling into her heart like a memory made flesh. The bond between them no longer hurt. It glowed, quiet and eternal. In the valley below, the pack rose from where they had fallen. The marks of servitude that once scarred their wrists had vanished. The forest was green again, alive and breathing. For the first time in living memory, there was peace. Elder Varric looked to the glowing horizon and whispered, "The white Luna has restored the balance." Some wolves began to weep. Others simply knelt in silence, watching the silver mist drift upward. From far above, a faint howl echoed. Aria's voice, filled with both love and sorrow. It rolled across the valley, a sound that carried for miles, through mountains and rivers, reaching every wolf who had ever lost hope. The eclipse had passed, but its memory would never fade.
The dawn that followed the eclipse was unlike any the pack had ever seen. The moon still hung faintly in the daylight sky, glowing silver against the morning blue, a reminder that night and day had touched, and neither had broken. The forest, once scarred by centuries of battle, was alive with color again. The air smelled of wet earth and blooming wildflowers. Birds sang where silence had once reigned. Wolves wandered through the clearing like souls waking from a dream, their eyes bright, their marks of rank and servitude gone. No alpha's mark burned on their skin anymore. All that remained was the simple hum of unity. But though the land was reborn, Aria was nowhere to be found. The last anyone had seen of her was a streak of light disappearing into the mountains. Elder Varric stood beside the ruins, staff trembling in his hand. "She gave everything," he whispered, "even herself." Days passed. The pack rebuilt their homes, learned to hunt again without command, to lead without fear. Yet at night, many swore they could still feel her presence. A soft wind brushing their fur, a silver light that shimmered in their dreams. Some called it imagination, others called it the Luna's blessing. But one night, as the moon rose full and round once more, a young wolf pup named Lyra wandered into the forest and saw a glow by the waterfall. "Who are you?" she asked, her voice small but brave. From the mist stepped a figure cloaked in white, hair flowing like starlight. Her eyes were gentle, her smile faint. "A friend," she said softly. "Tell them the light never left." And then, before the girl could speak again, the figure was gone, leaving behind a trail of silver petals that dissolved in the wind. When Lyra returned, the others listened in stunned silence. The story spread through the pack like fire through dry leaves. The white Luna lives. Far from the village, deep in the mountain caverns, Aria awoke. Her body was weak, her hands pale as snow. The light inside her had dimmed, but it was not gone. She sat up slowly, every muscle trembling. Around her, the walls pulsed faintly with silver veins, like the mountain itself was alive. "You're awake," came a voice, familiar, warm. She turned, but there was no one there, only the echo of Lucien's spirit woven into her heartbeat. "I thought I lost you." "You did," he said gently, "but only for a while." She smiled faintly. "So I'm alive." "You're something else now," he replied.
Not just Wolf, not just Luna, the bridge between what was and what will be. She touched her chest, feeling the steady rhythm beneath her ribs. It wasn't just her heart she felt, it was every wolf's heartbeat echoing faintly inside her. The pack lived through her now, and she through them. Weeks later, she returned to the valley. The pack saw her from afar and dropped to their knees, but she shook her head. "No," she said, voice strong but kind. "No more kneeling. Stand." Her cloak rippled in the wind, light spilling from its hem. "You are no longer bound by fear or bloodlines. From this day forward, you live as one, not under me, but with me." The wolves hesitated, unsure how to exist without a ruler. "How will we know what's right?" one of them asked. Aria smiled. "Listen to your wolves. They remember what we forget." Her words were simple, yet they rooted deep. The pack stood, each one finding strength in the other's eyes. Drax was not among them. He had fled north, broken and hollow, his name now whispered only in warning. But the curse of his reign had ended, replaced by something far rarer, peace that didn't need a throne to hold it. That night under a full moon, the pack gathered around a great fire to honor those lost. Songs rose through the valley carrying names that had been forgotten for generations. When they sang Lucian's, Aria lifted her gaze to the stars. "He walks with the moon," she said softly, "as all brave souls do." For a moment, the fire flickered silver, and she felt his warmth beside her, just enough to make her heart ache and heal all at once. The night ended not with mourning, but with laughter and tears mingled together, the sound of life returning. As the last embers faded, Aria whispered to the wind, "The wolves will never bow again." The breeze carried her promise through the valley, to the rivers, the hills, and the endless sky beyond.
The valley slept beneath a sky of silver fire. The moon was full again, brighter than ever, washing the forest in liquid light. The pack gathered silently near the sacred stone, the same place where Aria had once been chained, humiliated, and nearly destroyed. But tonight there were no shackles, no judges, no whispers of guilt, only reverence. The old banners of rank had been burned. The circle was open to all, omegas, betas, and alphas, standing shoulder to shoulder, their eyes reflecting the same pale glow. Aria stood at the center, wrapped in a cloak of white fur, her hair drifting like moonlight in a breeze that smelled of pine and rain. She looked around slowly, her gaze gentle yet powerful. "This was once a place of shame," she said quietly, her voice carrying without effort. "Now it will be remembered as the place of beginning." The crowd murmured, the sound rising like a tide. For the first time, no one bowed out of fear. They bowed out of love. She stepped toward the stone, pressing her palm against its rough, cold surface. "This stone was meant to bind wolves," she continued, "to chain us to rules written in blood and pride. But our bond was never meant to be broken, only healed." A ripple of silver light spread from her hand, climbing the stone like vines of light. The crowd gasped. Wolves shifted instinctively, their eyes glowing faintly as the ancient magic recognized its true master. The curse that had lingered for centuries cracked, invisible but immense. Every wolf felt it. The invisible walls between ranks shattered. For the first time, the pack's song, that deep, echoing hum of unity, rose in harmony, not hierarchy. Aria turned to face them, her eyes now fully white, glowing brighter than the moon itself. "From this day, no wolf shall be less than another. You were born of the same moon. You will live beneath her light together." In that moment, the air changed. The white Luna's light flared, not harsh, but pure. The forest leaned toward it. The rivers shimmered silver. Even the stars seemed to pause. One by one, wolves raised their heads and howled, not in sorrow, but in gratitude. It was a sound of generations finding peace.
Aria closed her eyes and let their voices wash over her. For the first time, she didn't feel alone. She didn't feel small. She felt infinite. Behind her, she sensed Lucian's presence, not as a ghost, but as warmth, as memory, as the echo of love that transcends death. "You did it," his voice whispered. "You freed them." Her lips trembled. "We did," she whispered back. "You and I." A single tear fell, glowing faintly before it touched the earth, where it bloomed into a small white flower. As dawn approached, the moon began to fade, and Aria felt the pull of her gift quieting. The light that had once burned inside her began to soften, becoming something gentler, something that could stay. She turned toward the mountains, the horizon already painted gold. "My place is with you," she said to the pack, "but my duty is with the moon. When you call, I will come. When you howl, I will hear. When darkness returns, I will rise again." She smiled, and for a heartbeat, her wolf shimmered behind her, vast, majestic, pure white fur glowing like sunrise on snow. Then, with one final breath, Aria stepped into the light. It lifted her gently, like an embrace, until she was gone. Not vanished, but transformed into a soft silver mist that scattered across the valley, seeping into the soil, the rivers, the hearts of every living wolf. When the sun finally rose, the valley gleamed. The pack felt her presence in every heartbeat, every gust of wind. The legend of the White Luna was no longer a myth or a memory. It was a promise, a story to tell their pups on nights when the moon burned bright and the stars sang softly. And somewhere, far above the world, the White Luna watched. Her light touched every pack that had ever suffered, every wolf who had ever been told they were less. It whispered the same truth into every soul. You were never born to bow. You were born to rise. Thank you for staying till the end. Please do well to like and subscribe to the channel, and also don't forget to drop your thoughts in the comment. It means a lot to me.